Here you are. Okay. Mike, okay. Greetings, my friends. Here is Lord A from Vox Vampyrica, and this evening we have a special guest. Mr. Brandon Pybus from Sonsombre is with us for this interview this night. Brandon, be very welcome to Vox Vampyrica.
Thank you, Andreas. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a great honor for us to have you with us this night, and I prepared some questions to you. And in these questions, some of them was sent by our audience of the podcast and from our Fangxtasy. I suspect that you enjoy this online parties produced by our website.
Absolutely, yes. It's a great format. You have a great crowd.
Great. Brandon, please present yourself to our audience here in Brazil and Europe.
Yeah, so my name is Brandon Pybus. I live in the Washington, D.C. area in the United States. I've been in bands, on and off since I was 10 years old. I started playing guitar when I was 10 years old. I was always fascinated with, more fringe genres of music, punk rock, heavy metal. And then in the early 90s, I was exposed to Christian Death's Only Theater of Pain, and it just blew my mind. And from then I started looking and finding basically anything I could that was on Cleopatra Records. Got into Nosferatu, The Wake, bands like that. And then, the goth scene kind of changed over time. A lot of the goth nights were playing more industrial, and EBM and goth rock kind of went to the shadows a bit. I mean, it was still there. There were still bands, but it went to the shadows a bit. So, and I was disconnected from the online scene. And I just, in about 2016, decided that I wanted to make a record that sounded like, the type of goth rock that I really loved. Bands like, again, The Wake, Rosetta Stone, Sisters of Mercy, that kind of stuff. And so I recorded the first Sonsombre album, and here we are. It's been really fun ever since.
Now I think this question is, I think that you must answer this question a lot of times when appear an interview with you. But what the origins of name Sonsombre? How will you start the band? What are your first steps to realize these great songs?
I think my first step, I was just doing something one day around the house, and the song Should I Go On, which was on the first album, A Funeral for the Sun, the chorus to that song just came into my mind, and I went into my studio and I recorded that song, and I thought, this is really great. This is the sound that I've been wanting to hear. And so I just kept writing, and I wanted a name for the band that really came on target, right? I wanted it to always be dark and have a dark sound. So Sonsombre actually is two French words, son and sombre, which means dark sound. And so it literally means dark sound. And that way, every time I say the name or hear the name, I remember what the primary mission is.
Here we are in the fading light, but we stand alone, and we're feeling like the world is over. It's gone, it's far away from here, we can't get it back. Why did it end? Tomorrow is another day, oh, so they say. It seems so far away, and you're gone. So far away from me, never to return.
Awesome. how was the first days of Sonsombre? Better the first nights of Sonsombre, the first songs, how they appear to you, how you create the inspirations, influences, movies, books.
Well, definitely movies and books. You know, I've always been a fan of the horror genre, and I've always been a fan, in particular, of like vampire literature. And one of the things, this is the first time I've ever told this to anybody. I think you'll appreciate this, perhaps. If you remember in the Vampire Lestat, when he was in a rock band and he didn't need a microphone because his voice was so, he was project his voice so well. I always imagined in my mind when I was young reading this book, what would Lestat sound like if he were singing? And when I heard The Wake, I said, that is what Lestat would sound like. And so this voice, and so these things come to my head. They basically, it's almost like a radio station in my head. I just, a line or a guitar riff comes to my head, but I'm always trying to think of that. There's an image in my head that I always want to stay true to. And if the song that I'm, hearing doesn't fit that, then off it goes, maybe for another project, or maybe I discard it altogether. But if it fits that mold of what Lestat's band should sound like, then I write it.
Lestat, it's a great character. This character of Annie Rice inspired many moments in my life.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I watched when appeared the movie with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. I watched the movie. I think every weekend I go to the cinema to watch Interview with the Vampire. And in the streets behind the cinema, we have a county with a lot of mansions and old houses, old amphitheater houses, and mansions for beefes and galaparis. And there was a mansion that I fall in love when I see the facade of this mansion. And 20 years after all this, now I realize a yearly party on this mansion called Carmilla. But yes, I walk through that streets inspired by Lestat.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful where those books can take you, or books in general, but those are very, very well done. And that movie adaptation was also excellent.
Yes. No, Howard, next question, my friend. Fear, Future is Black, Dark Skies are my favorite songs from Sonsombre. Please tell us more about your creations, lyrics, backstage. What may you tell for us, to our audience, about these awesome songs?
Oh, thank you. So Fear is an interesting one. Fear, again, this is very, very much, even if you read the lyrics, back to this story that I told you. So first of all, the song Fear, in terms of musically, sonically, I think it was very much influenced by the band from the UK that was called Suspiria, great goth rock band. So the sound was kind of inspired there, but the lyrics are definitely in the vein of what I was just describing to you. So, the vocal in that is told from the standpoint of, for example, if it were Lestat or some vampire who is leading a band and he's singing to his audience. He comes from the time before the night, and there's nothing to fear but him. So that was that song. The Future is Black is a song really about, your circumstances, whoever we are, and wherever we go in life. Everybody has ups and downs, and I really find that if you go to a goth night, you go to a night like you host yourself. A big part of it is you're in from the cold of the outside world, and it's like a family. People are together, they spend time, and you don't have to worry about the mundane aspects of life that can sometimes be a drag. Well, The Future is Black is very much about that. Like, no matter how bad the future looks, we have each other. Embrace it. Bring on the sundown, and we're gonna be fine. Darker Skies is actually, in my mind, it's a sequel to an earlier song called Matte Black. And so Darker Skies is really about emotional separation. So someone who is, in a relationship that has emotionally separated themselves from their partner, and it just kind of explores thoughts and feelings between both of them if you go back and forth between Matte Black and Darker Skies.
When create your songs, what more inspires you? What are your favorite books, movie influences? What is the most important and cannot miss when Mr. Pybus is creating his music?
At this point in my life, all of my influences from pop culture, be they books or films, they're kind of baked in, so they emerge sort of automatically, I think, in that radio in my head. But to give you an example of the things that really influence the visuals, because for me, when I write a song, there's a visual element to it. I see a scene and I see a story and a picture. The things that I really love, we've already discussed, vampire films, particularly Hammer films, are great. So Carmilla, I really appreciate that reference. Spaghetti westerns, early Clint Eastwood, like The Man with No Name type series, and some of the darker westerns in general. Those influence me, and certainly, all sorts of horror, and occult. All those things are sort of in a milieu in my mind, and they influence the sound when I write, and I'm mixing them all up.
Sonsombre videos hit our dark hearts from all who live the scene on the nineties, and I perceive a special care in his productions of your video clips. It's impossible when I watch not be transported to the nineties and begins of 21st century. What have in your videos that creates this magic who transport us to another decade so perfectly and smart, and the great sound of Sonsombre? Is there something on these videos in his producings? May you tell us about this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. So I just mentioned when I write songs, they come with a story. There's this synesthesia. I see, an image or color or textures, things like that. So in my mind, when I write a song, I already have a story in my head. And we've put together a really great team. I mean, we do all the videos ourselves. I have a wonderful cameraman, Jacob Johnson. He helps me. I direct the videos, so we sit down before we film, and I tell him the story that I'm trying to tell or the look that I'm trying to achieve. And then we set up and frame all the shots. And then I collect all the footage and I do all the editing myself, because that's the only way that I can ensure that it looks the way that it looks in my mind, right? So again, I would just say the look of the video and the feel of the video is just all of these influences that I mentioned. It's some sort of a mesh of there's usually some desolation, isolation. Those are themes in the songs, but definitely a vampire aesthetic, and also this Southern Gothic sort of Western aesthetic that comes in with our hats, etc. It's just a picture that I see in my head, and we do try very hard to bring it to life. So I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me to hear that you enjoy that.
It's an inescapable question. What are your favorite Gothic bands and your principal influence?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll split this into two parts. Sort of historical influences versus modern bands that are what I listen to currently. So historically, obviously the Sisters of Mercy, Fields of the Nephilim, Rosetta Stone, Nosferatu, The Wake, Suspiria. Those are the sort of the fundamentals. Although, like I said, Christian Death really got me into goth rock. So there's always an element of that floating around. Modern bands, the Kentucky Vampires, I really, really like. I'm good friends with those guys. They're great. Guillotine Dream from the UK, very, very dark sound, reminiscent in some ways of the Fields of the Nephilim, but I think they've taken it to a much darker place than the Fields ever did. October Burns Black, which of course has members of the Wake and Long Night, and it's just really fantastic. It's sort of in the vein of the Mission, I guess. So things like that. I mean, I do also, I listen to a lot of death rock, because where sometimes if there's not enough gothic rock being produced with a lot of guitar influence, there's still good death rock, but the goth rock scene is really coming to life. So there are bands popping up all over the place. Scary Black is another band that I really love lately. So yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's a great time to be a goth rock fan, because the scene is reviving like I think many people have not experienced since the early 90s. Another one, probably my biggest single modern point of reference is the Angels of Liberty. I think Vo was an absolute genius, and I think that in some ways, you know, he was doing what he was doing in a decade that was really difficult for pure Gothic rock. And so the Angels of Liberty, I mean, I see Vo as kind of this prophet standing off in the wilderness, you know, sort of heralding the coming revival. I mean, he was a few years ahead of his time. But oh my goodness, the Angels of Liberty, everything that Vo did is just solid gold.
Yes, yes, Angel of Liberty is a great band. It's a great influence to me. And sometimes I think, man, I wish had make an interview with that guy.
Yes. Yeah, it's a shame.
I listen his song and I think in all my books of Andrew Chamberlain, Nigel Jackson, Michael Howard, and in his lyrics he quoted many aspects of that books, and too much that I once heard of him, but when I was a dark day when I know about his passage, his death, and it was sad. It was very, very sad.
I'll still be with you when you wander in the night. We're falling faster, but you cannot run me. No matter where you are tonight, can it burn away the darkness? Can it burn away my loneliness? Can it burn away the years, the years, the years? Like fire burns the dark, we cannot feel it in our heart. Let's light the world on fire tonight.
Brandon, please tell me what your plans for the future of Sonsombre after this pandemic times.
Yeah. So for now, all of our concerts have been canceled all the way up through the month of October. We still have a festival plan that hasn't been canceled. Actually, 2 festivals in the month of October. So hopefully in the fall, if things are clear, we'll reemerge, you know, with some live dates. But in the interim, we're writing and recording our 4th album, and so about halfway done with that, and hopefully it will be out in the fall as well. So we're trying to make some productive use of this time. We're about to do a new music video for the song 1000 Graves, so we just try to keep busy and keep occupied, be productive until this passes, and hopefully everyone in the scene passes through it safely, because we want to see everyone on the other side of it when we get back on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good plan, and I hope this pandemic time ends soon, very soon. We have a lot to do. We have too many plans to realize, and you and Sonsombre are in our plans here to our Brazil. Maybe a great festival produced by Rede Vamp, and we want Sonsombre in our stages.
We would absolutely love that. So please keep us posted.
Yeah, let's organize and let's plan to do this and be awesome.
Yes.
Brandon, I know I've a great curiosity. Did you like the books of terror of Stephen King?
Of who?
Stephen King.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yes.
Oh, great. Is that a favorite book from Stephen King, or a movie inspired in his book that you remember and you like, and that's a great movie or a great book?
So with Stephen King, I think some of his film adaptations have not been great, but some of them have been stellar. The Shining was amazing. and I would say Pet Sematary was a really good adaptation. As far as favorite books that he's written, the Dark Tower series is probably my favorite. Again, somehow that it meshes really well. You know, this character Roland Deschain, the way that I pictured him in my mind is very much it very much fits with my aesthetic. So I really like that. There was another book though that Stephen King wrote that I think it was called Cell, and it was basically people would answer their cell phone and some signal would come into their ear and they would turn into like a zombie and go on a murderous rampage. That book was so dark. It was amazing. So it's maybe a little bit more obscure. If you ever find that one, if you haven't read it, it's really good. It's a quick read, but it's very dark, and it becomes post-apocalyptic quickly. And so, yes, absolutely Stephen King. And like I said, favorite movie adaptations would be The Shining and Pet Sematary. Salem's Lot is also extremely good.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Did you watch the new series Nosferatu, adapted from the book of Joe Hill, son of Stephen King?
Yes.
Did you enjoy?
I did, actually. It's a very unique take, on the vampire concept, but it's great. It's kind of a life force vampire. I like it.
Oh, great. I'm writing an article to release this week on Rede Vamp about the series with some Brazilian fans. And if it was here, then Nosferatu came to my mind, and let me ask you. We are coming to the end of our interview. I thank you so much by your time and your presence with us in Vox Vampyrica Podcast this evening, my friend.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your listeners and to speak to you. You're an extremely interesting guy. I'm glad I'm getting to know you. So this is great. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you so much. And soon, I will invite you for more participations in our podcast, in our online party, okay?
All right, great. Take care.
Thank you so much. So we follow our podcast with more songs.
Se você gostou deste vídeo, deixe um curtir, compartilhe com pessoas afins e visite sempre o nosso portal redevamp.com.
Okay, it's done. Just a second to stop the recording.